Hello and welcome to another gstormelectro video. This is the first tutorial in a series dedicated to editing sounds on the Oberheim Matrix-12 and Xpander. In this video I will cover the basics of creating and saving a single mode patch. If you already know how to get around the programming interface, you might want to skip this video. You should also have a basic knowledge of editing synthesizers. Knowing about oscillators, filters, LFOs, and envelopes will help get the most out of programming this beast. First, make sure the synth is tuned by going to the Tune page, selecting all, and waiting for each item to pass the test. It may take a couple of moments. In the programmer, patches can be recalled by pressing 2 digits or using the plus or minus keys on the keypad. The Matrix-12 is always in edit mode, but once a parameter has been changed, a little dot will appear next to the patch number. To compare the edited patch to the original, just hit the single mode button again. To save patches, press and hold Store button, then carefully enter the 2-digit destination of the new patch. To make an initialized factory patch called Oberheim, press and hold the Clear button, then the Store button. Initialize won't overwrite the current patch until the patch is saved. Next, I'll talk about the primary pages and what each one does. The voltage-controlled oscillators are the sound sources of the Matrix-12. Here are controls over the coarse frequency tuning, fine-tuning, volume of the oscillator, and pulse width, which applies only when pulse wave oscillators are in use. Page 2 shows the waveforms available. Deselecting keyboard makes the sound take on a single frequency no matter which key is pressed, which is helpful for making drum sounds. Lever 1 activates pitch changes to the oscillator when the lever is moved. Vibrato is a feature used in multi-patches that I don't really use much. Lag is a special feature that I'll discuss later. Does the VCO2 page look familiar? It's basically the same as the VCO1 page, except for page 2 has the addition of a noise waveform and oscillator sync. Sync forces VCO2 to have the same pitch as VCO1. The Matrix-12 doesn't have controls for portamento. Instead, it's a feature called lag, and it's available for doing much more than simply slurring note pitches. To activate lag as portamento, go to the VCO pages, activate lag, then on the lag page, make sure keyboard is the input and change the lag rate. When the lag rate is slowed down enough, you will hear an audible semitones stepping from one to the next. This is because keyboard is the source, and there are no interpolated values between two adjacent notes on a keyboard. At this time, don't worry about making the smooth transition. We'll look at doing this later. FM is frequency modulation, and there are two types on the Matrix-12. The first type of FM on the Matrix-12 is the oscillator FM, or modulating the frequency of VCO1, the carrier, by VCO2, the modulator. The second type of FM on the Matrix-12 is the filter FM, which allows VCO2 to modulate the filter input for interesting distortion effects. Smaller amounts of modulation can add subtle character to the sound. Tracking generators need to be connected between a source and a destination. Its function is to rescale the output for highly specialized behaviors. For example, a tracking generator can be inserted between the keyboard input and envelope release. In this configuration, it is possible to have higher and lower notes have longer release time than the middle keys, or vice versa. Here is specified what the input will be and the 5 points which control the scaling of the tracking generators. Remember, just about any source can be the input, not just the keyboard. Just think about all the possibilities. It's mind-boggling. Mode assigns the filter to be one of 15 different types available on their Matrix-12. Messing with these 15 different filter modes is highly rewarding and fun, so be sure to try them all. 4-pole low sounds nice and smooth like a Moog filter, whereas 1-pole low sounds gritty and dirty, like letting in more higher frequencies at the cutoff point. This page has a familiar cutoff frequency and resonance values. Also note, in the Matrix-12, by convention, envelope 1 is usually assigned to the filter. Page 2 has more filter controls. Keyboard tracking enables higher notes to have a higher cutoff frequency. Disabling keyboard tracking makes the cutoff frequency of higher notes decrease. Back on page 1, notice all sound of the Matrix-12 always passes through 2 amplifier modules to control the sound output. By default, VCA1 is usually set to 63, the maximum, to pass its audio to VCA2. VCA2 usually has a default initial value of 0. By convention, VCA2 is usually assigned to envelope 2 so that it can produce the volume dynamics. Accessing the envelopes page will prompt which of the 5 possible you want to program. Enter 1 to look at envelope 1. Remember, by convention, envelope 1 usually, but not always, used to control the filter. The LFO page will prompt which of the 5 possible low-frequency oscillators to edit. Controls are speed, shape, triggering, and the amount. Page 2 has controls for lag and retrigger mode. Ramps behave similarly to the attack portion of an envelope, and it's a good way to gradually change a modulation destination in a smooth fashion. Remember when lag was used earlier to create a slurred note, audible stepping was heard at very slow rates. Ramps can be used to create a smoothly slurred note because it does not use keyboard as a source. In fact, ramp is a modulation source with a single control, its rate. However, the ramps can operate in several modes, which are controlled on page 2. Then finally, the name page is used for naming the current patch. Well, thank you so much for watching. In my next video, I'll introduce the modulation pages and show how to create some stunning sounds with the Matrix-12.